Welcome to Resident Evil Zero and my thoughts about the game, I guess, as we go here. So yeah, this is my second video, because this is my second game I finished on YouTube, so hopefully this format gets better as it goes, but I think the first Far Cry video turned out pretty nice. But yeah, let's get on with the game. And I'm gonna go with the 8-point system that I used for the first game, or the Far Cry video as well. So I'm gonna put those 8 points on screen, and then I'm gonna just go on off cuff, like just throwing my ideas out there and like throwing my personal ideas at the end if I have something else to talk about. I don't have any actually written notes for this game. I didn't get any ideas while I was playing, I guess. But yeah. Yeah, the first part is knowing your audience. I guess this is pretty strong with Resident Evil. You know, because Resident Evil is like one of the biggest media franchises, isn't it? So yeah, they definitely know their audience and they don't bore you or anything like that, and the lore is very well, or most of the time it's very well written, and there's no like lore bombs or anything like that. No stupid humor, no stupid cultural references. So yeah, they do that very well, you know. And yeah, this wasn't even their first game when it came out, Resident Evil Zero. This is like... Is this kind of like after 1 or after 2? This might be like their third game. I'm not actually sure. Third or second, I think. In timeline, this is the first, so yeah. Second part is the flow. Well, I think the flow is actually pretty good for the most part. Like, the train sequence is really fun. I think the only point where the flow is kind of not good is the part after the train ride. Yeah, the gondola ride, where you get the first Tyrant fight. That felt like kind of off, and online people said it's basically fan service for like the second game or something like that. So that was kind of odd, and maybe the water treatment plant as well was kind of like dragging on a little bit. But most of the time it's pretty good, the flow, you know. Of course, there's no side quests in the game or anything like that. How obvious that everything is to the player? I don't know. I don't know. For the most part, it's quite obvious. Of course, there's like the Resident Evil puzzles, which are kind of odd sometimes, at least for me personally. I don't know about everybody, but some of the puzzles are kind of odd, I would say.
This is Rebecca. Over.
But yeah, most of the time the flow is pretty good and the puzzles aren't too bad. I think they're pretty on par for Resident Evil puzzles. Story pacing I think is pretty good. Like, this is my first, or actually I have played Resident Evil 7, but pretty much my first experience with Resident Evil, so...
Well then, Rebecca, why don't you go and try while I wait here?
So yeah, pretty much the story pacing I think is good as well. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. of course, the story kind of goes against some of the earlier other Resident Evil 2 and those games' established lore, so I guess that's actually part of the next part, you know, don't contradict. So there are some lore issues and kind of retcons and stuff like that if you read online. I wouldn't know because I haven't played Resident Evil 1 or 2. Which I think causes some issues. And maybe Resident 3 as well. At least 1 and 2 I think caused some retcon issues. Otherwise than that, I think this game is very recognizable, at least as a Resident Evil game. You know, you know when you're looking at a Resident Evil game pretty much. There's gonna be conflicting areas, you know, with the tunnels where you go after the gondola ride. Wow moments. Come to me moments. Well, this is not an open world game, so I don't know how much that is there in this game. Of course, the environments are, you know, pretty, and it, you know, kind of has that hook to throw you into like going and exploring as much as you can. So I guess it's in a way pretty good at it. Of course, there's usually only like 1 or 2 ways to go. I don't know if that gets better later on. I think most of the time Resident Evil games are kind of like that there's only like 1 or 2 ways. It's not like, I don't know, Hollow Knight or something like that, where you have like 4 or 5 different directions you could go at any time, you know, or any other Metroidvania.
I don't need this.
Visual literacy, environmental storytelling. Yeah, well, of course, that's one of the strong suits, because every like scene in this game is one of those like pre-rendered scenes with, and they have like the custom camera angles and all stuff like that. That's one of the strong suits in Resident Evils. Especially this style. Well, I've got the 3D Resident Evils are pretty good with this as well. And the areas do tell a story for sure. They're pretty good in that sense. Keeping it simple, don't overload the player. Well, of course, there is no quest objectives in a Resident Evil game, or much HUD at all. So I don't think there's kind of like a or information overload to the player. It's a very immersive in that sense. And there's of course notes and everything like that giving you a story. So I think in that sense it's pretty good. Yeah, that's one of the strong suits of Resident Evil. But it kind of immerses you in it. How many different things there are for different people? Well, again, this game, like even less than Far Cry, is like allowing for different playstyles. So if you don't like survival horror, you don't like this game pretty much. There's not gonna be many different ways to play this. Other than that. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's basically a very linear game. Well, yeah, that was actually quite fast. I look 10 minutes for my 8 points. Well, I intend to keep this as like concise as possible. My personal feelings about the game. Well, I guess the first thing I will say that is that maybe don't play it on hard like I did. I didn't look it up or anything. I was like, yeah, let's go hard. And then I read it like, yeah, it's kind of hard. This is like the hardest Resident Evil, they say. Except for that, what is it? Code Veronica, yeah, that's the game. I think that's supposed to be the hardest.
I'll put your
But
there.
you cannot even replay that on PC without an emulator or something like that. Yeah, I don't think even all the Resident Evils allow you to play on the hardest difficulty from the get-go, so yeah, maybe don't do that. But it was fun. It was like freaking annoying at some points, and there was like a lot of swearing that I had to edit. Especially at the end, and because this is like a 2002 game, I think. It's like I was like kind of scared at some points that I would soft lock myself, because it's kind of possible, and that kind of happened to me because I messed up the saving ribbons or my saves, and played wrong save and stuff like that when I was testing. Like I started the game and I was testing, and then I started the let's play, and I actually reloaded the test save, and I didn't have ribbons, and I basically had to play the train sequence all over again. So after that, I had this like, oh, am I gonna run out of resources? I'm gonna be soft locked, but I didn't. I almost did, but I didn't. So yeah, for the most part, it was really rather fun, I had to use Wiki a little bit to know what kind of stuff is ahead, so I don't have to like re-record like hours upon hours because of the save system. So I had to like look up like what is this boss's weakness, and even though the bosses are usually pretty close to a checkpoint. But yeah, I had to kind of like look up some good points where to save and stuff like that. Other than that, I think it was a really good game. I always have liked survival horror, even though I haven't played too much of it. Like, I have played Resi 7 and I have played Evil Within 1. And I think those are the closest to like classical like survival horror as there is for me. Huh. Yeah, I haven't played like other like classical. Well, I have played like other survival horror games like The Forest, for example. But like classical, no, not really. Yeah, looking forward to Resident Evil 1 next. I don't know when I will start that. I might start it in January, because I don't really have any game ideas on this channel. So I might like slip Resident Evil 1 in between and then start something like something late after that. There's some new games coming. No promises though, but might slip Resident Evil here very soon. Work my way through the series. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it on my thoughts about Resident Evil 0. I'm trying to think of something I wanted to say. I don't think I have anything really. Of course, I could say like like criticisms that I have. I think some criticisms that I have are like that the controls are janky, and I think they are even jankier than like Resident 1 or 2, especially 2 with the remaster. But like Resident 1, I think should be easier to control. I think that's something that people have said online as well, that the controls and the camera angles are not the best in this game. But you can live with it, so it's not the end of the world, I guess. Yeah. yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.